Yeah, so on FTX and FTX US, most of our volume actually comes from institutions. These are large, let's say, high-frequency trading firms that are trading, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of crypto per day. So we're totally fine charging much more reasonable fees to retail consumers, knowing that we are sort of making it up on the other side from the institutional players who are trading in volume. And that lets us basically compress fees and make it better sort of for everyone. So on both the retail and the professional side, our fees are some of the lowest, if not the lowest in the landscape.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Altcoin Daily. My name's Austin, here with my brother Aaron, joined by a special guest, President of FTX US, Brett Harrison. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. Now, I think our audience has probably seen you on CNBC, a bunch of those, news outlets talking, singing the praises of crypto. But just for those people that maybe have just meeting you for the first time, what's your background? How'd you get into crypto?
Yeah, for sure. So I studied computer science in college. Thought I would go work for some big tech firm maybe, or stay and teach. But I had a lot of friends who were going into the financial industry, specifically to prop trading firms. And I ended up following some of them to Jane Street. And I was at Jane Street Capital from 2010 to 2018. And I was doing software development and building trading systems and order entry gateways and market data handlers and things like that. And while I was there, I overlapped with Sam Bankman-Fried, who is the founder and CEO of FTX. And he and I worked together on a couple of projects. And then he went to go start all these awesome companies. I went to follow my family to Chicago and do my own thing for a little while. And then at my last firm, which was Citadel Securities, while I was there and eventually planning to leave, Sam and I had been texting back and forth. And he said, do you want to come over to FTX? And I said, yes. And at the time, I knew very little about crypto, but just wanted to be a part of this in any way I could. And that's how I ended up at FTX.
Is it Sam that you believed in, that you knew right away this was going to be a good idea?
Oh, yeah. No, just that what he's been able to build in such a short period of time, and that the meteoric rise of FTX and everything around him, it was very compelling. But besides that, just being able to see what was going on in crypto, how open everything was, how people were just talking about everyone's ideas and sharing open source code and investing in each other was a very, very different world from where I came from, where it was all very secretive and intra-competitive. And it was a good time to make a jump in something very different than what I had been doing before.
Brett, I want to get into crypto. I need to choose an exchange. Why FTX?
Sure. So just a little bit of background on FTX. So as I'm sure many people have heard of FTX before, obviously, but many might not know the full history. So FTX was founded around 3 years ago. It was primarily an answer to other international crypto exchanges that were doing derivatives wrong. They were doing things like liquidating customers at terrible prices, taking customer profits in order to cover for the losses that they couldn't risk manage, going down all the time. And so Sam built FTX with his two co-founders, Nishad and Gary, as an answer to what was otherwise an operationally very difficult setup in the derivative space for crypto. And what also many people might not know is that in cryptocurrency, most of the volume globally trades in derivatives, not in spot crypto tokens. So things like futures, not like converting Bitcoin to USD spot. So these are very, very important markets. They're very important for the functioning of healthy financial markets. And that exchange grew organically over time to being the second largest exchange in the world. Now, on the US side, US was the one place where FTX wasn't operating because you need special licenses to be able to offer futures. And so we started this separate company, FTX US, which has the licenses to be able to offer spot cryptocurrencies. And pretty recently, at the end of last year, we acquired an exchange called LedgerX, which is regulated by the CFTC, and will hopefully give us this year the ability to offer margin futures and options on Bitcoin and Ether to US customers. So back to your question, why FTX US? Well, a couple of reasons. One is, our upcoming product set. So not just spot cryptocurrencies, but soon being able to trade futures. We have NFTs on the platform. We're going to be launching a stocks trading platform pretty soon. So the breadth of what we offer. Now the depth as well, we're an exchange that we pride ourselves on being amazing for these sort of semi-professional traders who want a better experience for compared to some of the more retail-focused exchanges that are really just optimized for hitting that buy button, once a month on Dogecoin or something like that. And also our approach to customer service. We're probably the only exchange, one of the only companies in the world where you can go on Twitter and yell at one of us and say, hey, something's wrong with my account, and then we'll actually help you out. And so we really do care about every single customer. We make sure to keep that very, very high level of service across our products, regardless of how large we've grown as a company. And that's a really core part of who we are as a culture, to make sure that we're keeping a pace with what people actually want out there from our products.
So better UI UX, better customer service, and you have options for the more advanced trader. I guess the thing that spoke to me the most is just an average retail investor is the fees are 85% cheaper than competitors, which to me is sort of the most important. How do you keep the fees that low for the average person?
Yeah, so on FTX and FTX US, most of our volume actually comes from institutions. These are large, let's say, high frequency trading firms that are trading, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of crypto per day. Our comparative advantage is not some very long tail of retail users that are trading very infrequently but charging high fees. So we're totally fine charging much more reasonable fees to retail consumers, knowing that we are sort of making it up on the other side from the institutional players who are trading in volume. And that lets us basically compress fees and make it better sort of for everyone. So on both the retail and the professional side, our fees are some of the lowest, if not the lowest in the landscape.
Very interesting. Let's look to the future. How is FTX changing the industry, maybe like 5 years down the line?
So one of the most exciting things we're doing is in the area of derivatives. So we talk a lot about crypto, obviously, as a company, but our exchange is built somewhat generically, not just for crypto, but for basically any financial asset, which you can imagine having a price and exchanging between a buyer and seller. And between our technology, our mobile app, our UI, our fiat rails, but also the risk engine that underlies the actual derivatives exchange, we have this incredible superior product. And one of the most interesting things about it is that it works 24/7, which is not new to people in crypto, but it is very new for traditional financial markets. So when we launch our derivatives exchange properly here in the US, we'll be the first ever US futures exchange that has 24/7 real-time risk and margining, and also is direct to customer. So you can open an account directly with the exchange as a customer using, let's say, the mobile app or the website, and not have to go through an intermediary broker. And we think this is going to completely revolutionize the world of derivatives in the US. And as you may know from hearing on CNBC or Bloomberg, like, okay, what's the price of the S&P today? What's the price of the Dow today? What are gold futures doing? The futures markets are very much the barometers for the financial system as a whole in the US. That's where all the volume is really trading, is in these futures products, which have this great capital efficiency that are able to index across multiple instruments and give people a sense of what's going on. So this is a hugely important market, and I think we're going to really revolutionize by getting in it.
By the way, great job on marketing and partnerships over the last year. We were just in Miami for Bitcoin Miami, saw the big Miami stadium, basketball stadium. I was just at Coachella, and everybody who went to Coachella and got tickets got to get a Coachella NFT, and you had to get an FTX to get it. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a really awesome partnership because, NFTs are a super interesting space right now, and they're a great way of getting people into crypto, understanding things like proof of stake blockchains and non-custodial wallets and, transferring in and out. Like this can be very difficult for the average person who wants to get into crypto for the first time. But the idea of, oh, here's a collectible and you get to have this collectible and it corresponds to some sort of real world experience. I think that's something that people can really relate to. And so while NFTs are getting more and more popular, we really want to stick to NFTs that we think have this sort of tangible real world value. And the idea of having an NFT that gets you into a stadium or an experience or a concert or an event is really cool and a very nice application of NFTs. So that was a pretty cool partnership with Coachella that we did.
I want to zoom out and talk about Bitcoin and the broader crypto market, but just anything we didn't mention on FTX on what you're excited for in the future.
Yeah, I'll say one more thing, which is, so pretty soon, again, it's not really related to crypto, but is related to our goal of sort of disrupting traditional finance. We're launching a stocks trading platform pretty soon that will enable people to, for example, buy Tesla and Apple alongside Bitcoin and Solana. And the idea there is that if people want to invest, they might not know where they want to spend their marginal dollar in any given day. What they don't want to do is have to have multiple different accounts, one for stocks, one for crypto. And so this is why we've seen some other retail trading apps that have both be very successful at attracting customers and keeping them. So we're pretty excited about our upcoming platform as well that will bring hopefully a lot more people to FTX and to crypto who are usually doing more traditional investing. So keep a look out for that.
Thoughts on Bitcoin in 2022? Market's sort of depressed right now. Are you worried?
Yeah, so first of all, as an exchange, we're a little bit agnostic as to the price. We're definitely not in the business of making price predictions, but we do care about the overall health of the crypto market because, okay, if like Bitcoin goes to 17 tomorrow, probably we're going to be out of business for a little while, and that's going to be true kind of across the board. So it is important that crypto markets still stay fairly well supported, and public markets everywhere right now are being crushed. I mean, look at the Nasdaq yesterday, and Bitcoin basically did the exact same thing that Nasdaq did yesterday, which is go down some large number of percent, and one can try to guess why that happened. Maybe it has to do with the Fed's raising interest rates. Maybe it has to do with other things. But what is for sure true, regardless of what's happening in public markets, is that there's continual large investment in the private markets for crypto. Every day you hear of some brand new fund that's like a multi-billion-dollar fund that's going to be investing in Web3 and different crypto technologies and companies. And if you sort of follow where that's going to lead over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, it sort of almost by definition has to produce value. So much money is going in. Some of that's going to go into companies that are actually going to produce interesting products and services, new financial innovations. And that's why I'm hopeful about sort of the long term for crypto and for prices in general.
But you'd say you're a Bitcoin bull or are a Bitcoin believer, or are you more of a believer in just like L1s and in crypto?
Yeah, I would say I'm a crypto believer versus sort of like kind of like Bitcoin over other coins, if that makes sense. What I do think is that the layer ones are vitally important, and it's not going to be a winner takes all market. There's going to be a few survivors in the sort of medium to long term. I think Bitcoin and Ether already and Ethereum have such high network effects. So like even with though Ethereum has these high gas costs, and even after the merge, if it happens, it has such a huge community of application developers, of investors, of stakers, of miners, that regardless of what happens with the alternative layer ones, I think Ethereum is going to stay around. But then you have all these really cool new high TPS, low fee networks like Solana and Avalanche. And these are definitely going to increase over time too. And maybe some new thing comes along and overtakes those, but we'll probably have a couple of really systemically important ones over time. And those are the ones we're going to see with real longevity. But for now, given the networks on Bitcoin and Ethereum, I don't see those going away.
Brett, I want to ask you a personal question. Just feel free to answer as much or as little as you want, but I assume you hold Bitcoin. I assume you hold a little Ethereum. What's one or two other altcoins that you like or you see value in that are interesting to you?
Yeah, look, I personally hold some Solana for sure. Just see so much explosion going on in that space. What's fun for us is we get to see a lot of the Solana hacker houses, especially because we sponsored a couple of them, and just seeing the energy of developers there. I think it's one of the fastest growing developer ecosystems. And that's partly because of, again, how low cost it is to be able to actually develop on Solana and to push high amounts of transactions through. But it also has these, this incredible dev community, and they're doing these events like hacker houses all over the world that help attract that community even more. And so that's what makes me sort of bullish in general on that ecosystem.
Any thoughts, not on specific coins, but just in, either like Metaverse, L1, L2, these different like niches of crypto? Anything that excites you there?
Sure. Yeah. So we talked about L1s a little bit already, and I'm very excited for the development going on there. I think that's essential. I think I feel mixed on L2s and Metaverse stuff, and we can kind of talk about those separately. For L2s, I think there clearly needs to be some kind of real scaling solution for Ethereum, because there's so many participants that are already there. They're probably not going away. But in order to keep onboarding more users to there, as opposed to just all going to the new alt layer ones, there needs to be some kind of good scaling solution. And there's sort of no perfect answer right now if you want to keep the sort of full decentralization all the way through the stack. So whether you have these zero knowledge rollups, which are great, but the actual proofs that are posted to the layer one chain are fairly obfuscating. Like no one knows how to read like a Stark or a Snark on chain. It's just sort of something you have to kind of like trust is black magic, right? Or the optimistic rollups, which are easier to understand, but you might have to wait 7 days to withdraw your funds from the chain. There's sort of no perfect answer there. I'm not quite sure where it's going to head over time. Maybe these really blow up and explode, or maybe they kind of fizzle away and something else happens. So sort of my thoughts on layer twos. On Metaverse, I think that a few things. One, I think Metaverse hasn't quite found its set of really killer apps yet. There's a lot of like pre-purchases of land plots and different kind of brick and mortar stores that exist in real life. They're trying to sort of set up Metaverse outposts. But I think until we get like a more kind of ubiquitous use case for the Metaverse, it's probably not going to grow as fast. Also, I'm scared about the whole interoperability issue. You have all of these different metaverses owned by different companies with different sort of proprietary control over the game mechanics or the metaverse mechanics. And it's a little bit sort of anti to the spirit of crypto, and without some kind of open interoperability layer underneath, sort of worry that we're not going to have 50 metaverses long term if it's going to actually grow somewhere. So a little bit cynical on both, but I think those are kind of my more realistic takes on what's going on there.
I love it. We want realistic. And speaking of that, final question, you said earlier that FTX is sort of going to revolutionize the space by merging traditional finance and crypto, an all-inclusive platform. How do you see the crypto industry in general changing by 2030? What's a prediction, or how do you see it?
Sure. I think what's going to happen is over the next couple of years, we're going to see US regulators, but also regulators globally, finally pin down comprehensive crypto regulation frameworks. And what this is going to do is it's going to finally well codify the safe rules of the road for crypto. And that's going to enable much greater traditional industry participation in crypto. For example, banks. Right now, large banks in the US largely completely avoid crypto, even though they're dying to get into crypto, because of the ambiguity around regulations that would involve large financial institutions. I think once those players get involved, then all of a sudden the space is going to mature at an even faster rate and enable even greater innovation, and a lot of that innovation to stay in the US as opposed to getting exported offshore, where regulations might not be as strict as they are here. So I think that's sort of my prediction for going forward, which is a little bit vague, but basically it's regulation gets clearer, that enables more responsible innovation. Hopefully a lot of the noise drops away. There's a lot of noise in things like alternative tokens and NFTs and things like that, where there could be like really great sort of kernels of great technology that could come out of both of those areas. And I think that will happen better when we have clear regulation.
I love it. Brett, thank you so much for being on today. Big fan of FTX. Everybody go set up an FTX account linked directly below. Thanks for coming on, Brett. Final thoughts for the Altcoin Daily audience.
Yeah, I love the show, and thanks so much for having me on.